Hello, everybody, and welcome to the pilot episode of the All Birdies, No Bogeys podcast right here on JomezPro. It is March 2nd, 2025. Myself, Brian Earhart, my co-host Nate Perkins here in Brooksville, Florida, after an eventful and, in my opinion, phenomenal starting week here on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And we have a new weekly podcast coming at you this season right here on Jomez. Nate, how you feeling right now?
I'm cheesing, Brian. This is a big moment, big opportunity, and I've loved working with you over the years. And yeah, the tournament just ended, so Sunday after an event, it's always you're reflecting back on the day, and yeah, I'm happy to be here, Brian.
Well, before we get into what transpired this week, and all the things that we want to talk about, I want to reintroduce us as a team to the disc golf world, because there are some people that maybe didn't watch Gatekeeper or maybe didn't watch Tournament Central and maybe only know you and I from making fools of ourselves on the putting game or other little things that we've done here on the Jomez channel. Yeah. But we have worked a lot together. So Nate, give us the summary of how you got to this point in your disc golf career, doing media full time. Yeah. You've traveled the world doing pretty much everything at the pro level.
Yeah. I've told my disc golf story a few times, so I'll keep it a little more brief here, but I started playing disc when I was young. My dad was playing in the late 80s. I was born in 92 and was playing disc at the age of 3-4 years old. And as soon as I graduated college, started playing disc tournaments. And I drove out to California, drove to the Beaver State Fling. I picked up Greg Barsby. We toured to a few tournaments, and it just happened to be the starting year, the inaugural year of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Had no idea that was going down. And so I played every Disc Golf Pro Tour event, Brian, from 2016. I think the first time I missed a Pro Tour wasn't until 2021 at some point, when I took a broadcasting gig with the network, I believe. Someone will check me on that, but I'm pretty sure I played every year, every event. I had done a lot of post-production work with a lot of different companies. I worked with Jomez a little bit, worked with Central Coast, Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, a lot of small companies as well out there. And I loved doing it, man. I loved post-production. And so the shift into working with the Disc Golf Network was pretty natural, and really a really fun job. I mean, really a dream job. When you think about it, at the end of the day, I'm walking around the course with a microphone, getting the best seat in the house to the best disc golfers in the world. So, yeah, that's the brief summary of how we ended up here.
We actually first crossed paths as players at Northwoods, I believe. Yeah. We played on a card together, and I have a story about you that makes me laugh every time because we get on a card together and we both kind of have a unique play style. You're like right-handed, very technical, and at the time you were very sidearm dominant, throwing a ton of hyzer flip sidearm, really technical shots. I was the left-handed version of you, and I was a super unicorn of a lefty. I was throwing a bunch of weird standstill flip up sidearms. That was my bread and butter. Like if it was a lefty hyzer, I'd probably throw a turnover forehand. And you threw a shot at Northwoods and you nailed it. It was a forehand, and you turned around and I heard you under your breath go, "Nobody's got that shot but me." And I thought to myself, I was like, I got that shot too. I think I could hit that shot. And it was so enjoyable watching someone play the game kind of how I played it, because the game is backhand dominant. Yes, the best players are good with both spins, but it's just fun to watch a player like you or Germ who's still doing it. And Chandler Kramer, when he came around throwing all those crazy flip sidearms, it made me feel less of a psycho going out there and playing the game. But, similar story to you, I've been hooked on disc golf and Frisbee in general since I was a little kid. And over time, I started thinking to myself, like, how did Ken Climo do what he did? How did Barry do what he did? And then when I was really getting into disc golf, it was like Dave Felberg and Doss and Philo and all those guys on tour at the time. And I didn't quite get, you go on the PDGA website, you're like, how are these guys out here on tour? I don't understand. And I never thought it was a possibility to ever work or be in the disc golf world full time. And I got to a point where I was making almost no money. And I have to sell my belongings to like pay for groceries. And I finally realized, like, I'd rather just lose everything that I own and go try disc golf than continue doing what I'm doing. So I kind of casted everything aside. I went and got a new job. I moved back home, and I had a goal to save up a certain amount of money. Saved up that money, got 1,000 rated, got sponsored by Discraft. Shout out Bob Giulio for giving me the shot. And I went out there in 2018, lived out of my Buick LaCrosse.
I remember the Buick.
Funny enough, when I was selling the Buick after that 1 year, I ended up selling the Buick to the guy who wrapped Serena Williams tennis rackets.
No.
Crazy crossover. He's a disc golfer too. Wild story. But,
random.
Yeah, I got some commentary gigs in 2018. My first one ever was with Gatekeeper, the Delaware Disc Golf Challenge at the end of the year. And then I got a gig with Jomez because of Yuli in 2019. And then, like you, I kind of tried to make friends with all the different YouTube channels and kind of got my chops early doing that. Man, when me and you got that commentary gig in 2020,
yeah,
I think it was with Gatekeeper, it was kind of life-changing. I think we both realized that we love disc golf kind of the same way. And I think we got a lot of practice in YouTube. And then once we kind of transitioned to Disc Golf Network, Tournament Central, if you haven't watched it, was, in my opinion, a great show. And it was the best practice that we could have ever gotten.
That was the hardest show.
Yes, disc golf commentators. It's not happening this year, but this is going to be the replacement for it as of now. But yeah, here we are. This is kind of the natural progression. Now we have even more creative control to analyze these tournaments week in and week out. So with that long-winded story, bring us in here, Nate. What did we just see this weekend? Can you talk about this course, Olympus, for the people that have not been here?
Man, a few years ago, this tournament was called the Throwdown the Mountain. And for many years, you could see it on Terry Miller's channel, on the Disc Golf Guys channel. And I had watched it for many years before I finally said, I'm just going to make it down there. I drove across the country to make it for the event, because it was always a time of year where it didn't really coincide with the rest of the tour. You kind of had to go out of your way. And it was a USDGC qualifier event first year that I traveled there. You start to get a little closer to the course, and there's all these massive live oak trees just rising up out of the ground. There's huge native palm trees, and you pull into the course, and that foliage, it's just magnificent as you're rolling into this place, because the live oak trees, they have this Spanish moss that's like hanging down off the branches, and the big branches have these resurgent ferns growing on them. So when you're rolling into Olympus Disc Golf Course, it's like you're entering another world. And the course itself is an old limestone quarry. So if it wasn't a quarry, the area is actually, it's too flat for disc. It's just, there's not enough variety. This part of Florida is totally flat. And so without it being a quarry, it's just, there's no magic there. But because it's this quarry from, like, I think the early 50s is the last time that it was active, it has the elevation necessary to get creative. And I was actually walking around the course with King Climo this weekend, and he was telling me stories from the late 90s, early design, Greg Hosfeld. He was showing me some holes that were like backed up against the quarry, like going down an old dirt road, and recalling certain shots from there. So it really just is hallowed ground out there. It's got disc golf history. And when Paul Macbeth and Dylan Cease bought the property, it was about to be sold to, the course was going to be gone. It was going to be sold and just used for cattle. And Macbeth and Cease bought the property, and they've revived it. And honestly, I couldn't imagine a better place to start the DGPT season. And yeah, this weekend, Brian, the weather couldn't have been any better out there, man. We just got that Florida sun, 70 degrees every day, no rain, almost no wind.
When I heard the news that Paul and Dylan bought the course, I instantly called my brother and told him, like, did you hear what happened? I'm thrilled. I want more things like this to happen in disc golf. And I know it takes a very specific formula, like MLB pitcher who's actually doing phenomenally well and has a great contract, and the richest player in the history of disc golf as well, teaming up. That's pretty special. But this brings me now to something that I want to do every week. I like critiquing courses. We are out there week in and week out, seeing the players, chatting with the players about these courses, about the changes each year. And I don't necessarily want to just give our straight up opinion on the course. I want to quantify it in a way so we can give it a fair shake each week. So we've come up with 4 different categories that we're going to use to grade each course, 25 points per category. This is going to be the current grading format. If any of you listening think you have a better format, please reach out to us. Never hesitate to contact me and Perkins as this show continues to evolve. This show's definitely been a long time coming, but we are open to kind of growing a community of people that want to drive the conversation as well. And also, if you want to partner with the show, if you feel like you want to be a part of it on a bigger level, please reach out to us and let us know. It's kind of a blank canvas right now. But the 4 categories for grading these properties is going to be infrastructure, the setting, the challenge, and the design. I say challenge and design are very different because there can be a course with wonderful design that's very enjoyable to play, very fun to watch on camera, but gets absolutely shredded. And vice versa. There's very challenging courses that don't feel like the design does it justice. So different categories there. The difference between infrastructure and setting. Setting, exactly like you said. What's the biology of the place? Does the topography make it interesting? Do you feel like you're being pulled into the state that you're currently playing in? W.R. Jackson to me is the perfect definition of setting. You know you're in Georgia when you're there. You smell the pine, the red clay, the beautiful towering pines. And then infrastructure is more the logistics of the property. What is the spectator experience like? What are the sight lines? Is there power? Is there running water? Is there sufficient parking? Can it handle a Disc Golf Pro Tour event?
Yeah, like proximity to a disc golf hub, proximity. I mean, Brooksville, you know, I kind of dropped the ball, but Brooksville is like an hour north of Tampa and almost a similar distance, like hour and a half west of Orlando. So you can fly into either city and you're not too far from the course. And both places, you look on UDisc, I mean, there's hundreds of disc golf courses. So it's a disc golf mecca here.
So let's start with setting. You already pulled us in. What is your grade out of 25 for Olympus?
Yeah, this is fun, man. And I'm going pretty high for my setting. I'm giving it a 23 out of 25 points for the setting. And for me, the only real drawback is the road that runs along hole 4. You can kind of hear it on hole 2 as well, off on the right side. and then you can hear it 10 and 11. And for me, it's enough of a distraction for both the players, the fans, and, you know, when we're presenting this live on the Disc Golf Network, it just kind of takes away from the product. You know, when I think about some of the better sports broadcasts out there, like the Masters, it just doesn't have, you know, a Mustang like revving up and just like ripping 80 miles per hour, like right next to Scotty Scheffler, you know, putting. So it takes away from it a little bit, but not too much. 23, Brian, where are you at on it?
I almost perfectly agree with you. And I like this grading system because you can critique something, but also still give it an A. And I like that. You can at least quantify how severe or not severe a critique is. I actually might agree with you perfectly. I'm going to give it a 23. I'm going to give it an A. It totally deserves it because it's so special. Everyone that plays here feels like it's a special place. But yeah, perfect 25 for this property would be pull it off the road. And if you had to drive down like a dirt road to get to the parking lot and then the course is back there, then you're isolated. You're at a place that maybe the rest of the community doesn't even know about. And it's just this magical property for disc golf. But yes, I also give it a 23. Moving on down, let's talk course design and challenge of the course. I think we should start this with the challenge.
Yeah, the challenge is high. It's the same for me. It's 23 out of 25. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's high for me because it constantly keeps players on their toes, and we never see a large quantity of players shredding it. Like we see a few players get hot, but every round, round one, there was 2 players double digit MPO, and round 2, I don't think any. And then round 3, there were a handful. When you look at the rest of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, I mean, there's a lot of courses out there where double digits are just ripe for the picking. You almost have to be in that double digit range. And I just don't feel like Olympus is going to get shredded. I mean, it was perfect weather conditions out there, almost no wind affecting players on all the putts. And there were a few moments where out there on like 12, 13, 14, where the wind kind of came into play, but it was calm out there. And still best score we saw was Robinson's 12 under on the final day. And then you look at number 1 player in the world, like Olympus showed its teeth, you know, Gannon Bird, triple bogey final round, AB triple bogey final round. Like it's got teeth, and it forces specific shapes. There's so many times where you have to get nose angle right. You have to get the degree of hyzer right and trajectory, or you're just not going to find the landing zone off the tee. You got to get the speed right, like the blind shot on 17, up and over the hill, over the OB, under the oak tree, short of the back wall. There's shots like that we just don't see at other properties that really kind of keep the players on their toes.
So essentially, you're giving it a 90. What is that? 92 out of 100 for the challenge. Giving it the 23.
Yeah. 23.
So I'm going to give it. When I'm thinking of a 25 for challenge, I'm thinking of a course where even is a grind. And like, I'm thinking Northwood Black would maybe come as close as possible to a 25. This is a category I'm going to be pretty strict about. An even par was still pretty good. You know, it's a decent score out here. But I see enough people shooting 6, 7, 8, 9 under par to where I can't give it a 23. I'm going to give it a 20. I'm going to give it a 21 out of 25. I think it's a great course. We'll get into it in the design category, but challenge. It's hard, but I still think the fact that, Calvin was 13 under par going into hole number 17. So I don't know. I don't think a 25 out of 25 would ever have that. But let's go on to the design. What did you think about it?
Yeah, the design is also pretty high level. And I think that the property's not that big, Brian. It's really not that big. And so there's only so much that you can do to have championship 18 out there. I think that I would probably rate it a little lower if the property was just massive, expansive, and those are the 18 that they came up with. But with the land and the way that they get the flow and the variety of shots that they have out there, I think for me, the design is 22 out of 25. I can't give it an A because there are some spots. I'm thinking hole 13, it was for FPO. It was a shorter par 4. You're teeing off kind of right behind the VIP tent, right off the green of 12. You're parallel with the tee or with the fairway of 14, and you're just kind of throwing into this wall of trees. And I'm not certain what the gap is that they really want you to filter through. There's like 5 or 6 of them, and all of them are kind of 2 to 3 feet across. None of them are really pure the whole way through. And players were having trouble with it, but not in the way that you want them to as a designer. We saw, and for MPO, the basket was shortened this year and turned into a par 3. It was like 460. And we saw players trying to throw like quick flip rollers. It was fun. But when you have a line through the trees and players are going roller, that, it might be a little too tight. And I think I saw actually 3 shots on the week make it into the circle there. I think the scale of a couple of the holes feels a little small. And then there's no par 5, right?
There's par 5s out there
for MPO.
Yeah, 15.
15's the one par 5. I would like one. Yep. I'd like one more par 5 out there on the front. I would just like a little bit more golf, and that's why she's ticking down to a 22.
20. Okay. Hey, fair, completely fair. We're also still trying to maybe refine our grading process.
Yeah, we are.
So this first part.
Look, 22 is great. I mean, I'm high on it. I love Olympus.
Looking back to high school, if I were to get a 22 out of a 25,
stoked.
Absolutely stoked out of my mind. That probably meant I tried on the assignment. Let's see here. I'm trying to look at the holes because for me, when I think of course design, I think of variety. I think of how many skill sets get challenged and what type of player can win at this course. Is it a specialist that can win, or does it have to be a well-rounded player? I think of the GMC courses where these courses would score likely pretty low in the difficulty category, but design, I'd give them high ratings because the players have a blast at them and there's a lot of variety. But I'm looking here. I think of a couple things that I enjoy. Hole 1, especially in the MPO layout, you throw this screamer forehand. You have to control this really delicate ground play. And then there's a huge drop off on the miss side for the forehand. On the backhand side, you can flip a shot up and slide this really cool backhand up to the green and give yourself a putt. There's this hanging branch. And if you want to take it inside, you can give yourself more of a ceiling. So I love the options there. It's so balanced. It lets the player's individuality sing. And I feel like there's a few different holes out there that do that. And also, there are some holes like hole 9 that just showcase pro disc golf in such a cool way for both divisions. And I love that both divisions get to shine because sometimes one division or the other gets the favorability when it comes to the design. You watch an FPO player throw off the tee of 9, and they blast the flex down the hill. They get the nose down. They have to make sure it fades before it hits that tree line. And then we watched Ezra throw just an absolute missile off the tee on 9, which I still think is one of the coolest places to watch disc golf on the course. These guys are throwing 75, 80 miles an hour off the tee, trying to throw across this valley to the green.
That inside flip-up shot, that's the one you're talking about, the 500-footer. Yeah, he went like 40 deep.
Disgusting.
It was nasty.
Yeah.
On a rope. Oof.
But it's a course that makes the players play technical, but also it makes you play careful. So I'm going to give this course from a design standpoint. You know what? I'm also going to give it a 22. I'm going to give it the B+. But I really enjoy it. The one thing that takes it away from me is a personal problem that I have, is blind corners. And I don't think it's inherently a terrible thing. There's just a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
And that's just on me. And that takes away a couple points, but not too shabby. Moving on. Final category. Infrastructure. Nate, what do you think?
Yep. The infrastructure here it's going to score the lowest out of the categories for me, because the spectator experience, I feel, is if you don't know the property, you show up there, it's not totally intuitive, where to go. And I think the operations team for the DGPT, they do a good job of kind of guiding people into place, but it's just, there's so many spots out there where you don't know that you're backing up into the fairway of another hole. And like you said, there are a couple blind shots out there. So for the spectator, you've got to pick kind of one or the other. Like, do I want to try and stand right behind the tee and see them throw this blind shot, or do I want to walk down the hill and see the disc go over my head? Can I even stand there? And there's that fine balance that disc golf is walking, where we really want to watch players play in the woods. I mean, that's where the magic of this game really is multi-angle shots through a forest. But how do we also combine that with allowing people to watch live? I mean, we can film it. We can get the cameras right there behind the tee pad, but how many viewers can we really get right behind the tee pad? So finding that magic balance it's going to be something that disc golf is forever going to be searching for. It's how do we find the right spot? Now, there are some amazing places for the viewer out there. The VIP tent down there, 12, 13, and 14, which is also GA all the way around it. So anyone can be right there. It's a great spot. You're watching these huge shots come down the hill on 12. You're watching that really tight wooded hole, which is giving people trouble. And then you're watching the big hole coming back on 14. So and with just blue skies above you, giant pine trees, red-tailed hawks kind of swooping in. It's a sweet spot. And you're down there at the bottom of the quarry too. So the spectator experience is good, but in future years, we're going to figure out how to make it better. We're going to figure out how to elevate the stands on 18 so people can see them throw up the hill. And then infrastructure, I didn't give you the number, did I, B? For me, it's a 20. It's a 20 out of 25.
I think we are going to discover that the wooded courses are almost always, when it comes to infrastructure, going to lose on the points there because of the paradox of spectating professional disc golf. So I'm interested to see how different courses rate in our opinion. I would give a close score. I think the spectator experience this year was still awesome. You walk around and you see people just having the time of their life. And you know what? Yeah, there's a lot of blind corners out here, but people were just posted up, sitting, not moving. and watching some pretty phenomenal shots. I think the best sight lines on the course, hole 2's tee shot. You get to watch a rope distance driver hyzer flip down the fairway. That's a shot where, Anthony throws a drive and the whole crowd's like putting their hand on their head. Like they've never seen a disc rocket out of the hand like that in person. That's a great one. Again, I think hole 9 is one of the coolest places to spectate because behind the tee, there's a big upslope. So you can walk up the hill and be looking down upon the players as they rip across the ravine 450 feet. So I think there's so many redeeming qualities. And I'm going to give it a 21 because I really think it's improved a lot. And again, it's disc golf. Like we have to be very creative as we develop infrastructure for these types of things. Building a course out for media and for spectators is still a very new concept. So what they did this year, fantastic. But I think the infrastructure thing in general is going to be a tough one to score most of the time. Here's my wish list.
Yeah.
For the spectator experience. And this is like me laying on a blanket in a meadow, looking up at the clouds and just daydreaming. Hole 18 had the VIP tent behind the green built up. There were snacks. There was a monitor to watch them tee off, which I think is so cool and the future of spectating disc golf. And we could talk about this later. But if they just elevated it another 5 feet, it might even be scaffolding at this point. So I don't know how realistic it is. But if you could get everyone around the green of 18 to be able to look all the way down to where the players are, it would just be one of the coolest places to watch disc golf. And also the perspective of watching a disc come at you from the bottom of a hill would be so strange and cool to watch. And I think with that, people would buy VIP to just sit up there all day. And even this year they did.
Well, I've got to add, Brian, before we move on from this, I didn't give it enough credit about the 18th specifically because it's making my dream 18. And I think that's something that we should ask every week really is there a hole that makes your dream 18? We use that term loosely in disc golf all the time, but we're going to keep tabs on the All Birds pod. Will a hole from this course make your dream 18? And for me, it's an absolute yes. It's the 18th because there's just not another hole like it in disc golf. I mean, you're teeing off descend like 100 feet from the tee down to the bottom of the old quarry, which is just the perfect landing zone of Bermuda grass. And the OB makes you think with the pond, there's space on the right for the forehand that you can kind of push it up into, but then to throw right back up. So the right down and then right back up, you got to hike down and then you're hiking back up to make your final putt. Yeah. And for FPO, we'll get in as we move into FPO for them to play off on the 18th on repeat. How can we start the season with a 3-way playoff on hole 18 at Olympus, Brian? You kidding me?
Well, of course. Nate, with how many tournaments we've had on the tour the past few years that we've just gotten absolutely dumped on by rain and storms and lightning delays, we needed this. We really needed a weekend like this. And I just had a fantastic time. You were out there on the course, but I was just kind of floating and pulling interviews and preparing for the show here. And I just saw a lot of smiling faces. And I was just so thrilled. I believe there were more tickets sold than last year, which makes me super happy. There were so many kids that came out that were wearing their AB hats and representing their different favorite players. And
dude,
it was just
so
wonderful.
Many AB hats. There's so much AB apparel in general.
It's a nice logo.
It is a nice logo, man. He's got to be crushing it.
We had a wonderful event here in Florida. Overall, the setting, everything was beautiful. Weather was perfect. And we had some really exciting finishes in both divisions. Nate, you were the guy on the ground. Mm-hmm. Walk us through FPO. Let's kind of talk about the division right now.
Yeah, let's start from the top. I mean, Ella Hansen, of course, ends up taking it down. And honestly, I didn't think that Ella was going to win until the very end. I mean, the very last moment, 17's tee shot was when she really kind of came in clear into the picture for me, because I actually followed her. She was on the card with Paige Pierce during round 1, and she was 3 over through 7, I believe, to start her tournament during the opening round. And for me, Ella's such an athlete, and she has figured out the disc golf throw. I mean, she has 400 feet in her back pocket on hyzer, no problem. But I'm not a full believer when I'm watching her swing on where the disc is going, because every now and then she's yanking them. You know, she's getting off her line, and when she does so, she's doing it with power. So I'm watching her during this opening round, and, you know, a couple early shots, a couple like tugged on mid ranges that are OB, and it just, I'm not a believer, but she is, and she's played sports all her life, and she now feels like a veteran already on the tour. I think was this year 4 for her out on the road? And she just knows how to get it done. And she's now able to have those like yanks and forget about it, have that like short-term memory. And I think that that's kind of the mark of her experience, is being able to get off your line, being able to airball a putt and forget about it, and still stick to the same routine and get back up on the tee pad or step up to your next putt and just bury it. And that's what she did this week. She stayed in contention. And when Holland let the pressure get to her on the back 9 of the final round, Ella was right there and came up clutch on 16's drive, 17's drive, and 18 really just came up clutch, and then obviously back-to-back eagles in the playoff to take it down. So huge win for Ella. And yeah, I mean, what do you have to say about the way that Hansen was able to come out on top?
I know that you were saying that, you know, sometimes when she throws with power and it sprays.
Yeah,
understandable. She's a baller. She is just a straight up baller of a thrower. She was on Team USA for Ultimate. I think it was the U24 team that she was on. She has just crazy ability on both sides of the disc. And there was a time when I kind of felt the same way that you did, where I was like, okay, she's really talented, but I don't know if like the whole game is going to piece together. I don't know if she has the disc part of disc golf just completely nailed. Is she going to figure out the golf part? And I think, you know, she's still newer to the game. She's like Holland, like they're still like absorbing information like at a rapid pace. And I think this is the year that we see not only Ella become, you know, next level golfer when it comes to like course management and confidence and decision making. We're going to see a lot of the women in this division do the same thing. And I attribute it to what Kristen did when she won the Grand Slam a couple of years ago. She told everybody pretty much without saying it, you got to shape up and you have to learn how to make better decisions, because I'm not going to make bad decisions. That's what blew me away the year when she won the Grand Slam. I was like, these people are so talented, but if they don't know how to control their talents, especially these players with unbelievable varieties of shots, they're not going to win. And I'm really starting to see it with Ella. And also the forehand is finally coming around. And she said dominant. That earlier in the week. Yeah. She said that in the interview. She said forehand is the one thing that feels like the bread and butter right now. And I know last year, 2 years ago, I would watch her, you know, with my on-course pack and my microphone following her around. She'd be playing just as well as the people on her card or the people that she needs to beat, but she'd be sawing off these forehands. She'd pop the nose up and it would saw off, and I would count like 6 7 times around it would happen. And that's the only mistake she was making. It's so funny. I was interviewing her for an episode of Catch on Jomez, and I asked her why she didn't throw hyzer flip sidearm. And because she throws really overstable stuff for sidearm. And she said, because I have thrown so many like forehands in ultimate where you have to pop the nose up to stabilize it, I wanted to do the exact opposite in disc golf. So I didn't think about making that mistake. And for a long time, ultimate kept creeping into her subconscious, and she kept popping her wrist up and dropping the elbow last minute. But now she's throwing some fastballs right down the middle, and the overstable stuff that she's throwing looks awesome. So yeah, I don't know. I'm really impressed with Ella, and I really hope that she keeps this up, because if so, we're going to have like 6 or 7 or 8 contenders that are like right there ready to win a tournament. And I can't wait.
Yeah, Brian, Ella Hansen, she threw round 2. She was also playing with Pierce. She threw on hole number 2. She was about 380 out from the pin and just roped a cloud breaker and parked it. And Pierce turns around and is just like hyped on it. And she was like, did you
of course,
Bushnell that? Like, how far was that? and then that's exactly what Ella like relied on to close it out. I mean, she hit the drive on 18 in regulation, missed the approach, which is how that she let Evelina and Holland back in. But then to go to forehand eagle, forehand eagle for the dub. And I mean, you're right. She is a baller, and she's going to make me a believer real quick if she keeps it up and is able to push through the pressure. And the athlete that she beat, Holland, is next who we should talk about, because you were telling me a little bit about your interview with her, and I want to hear a little bit more about the kind of psychology that Holland's diving in, because I think that's for me, that's the one door that Holland needs to open, because the pressure can get to her on Sunday. We saw it last year. It was like, what did it take until Beaver State Fling? Was that her first? She had, I think, 7 lead card final round appearances.
Yeah, look at all the second places in the 2024 season. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like 7. And she was in control until the first bit of pressure showed its face during that final round, until her first tester putt or her first awkward lie, little patent pending, until the pressure really showed itself. It seemed like nothing could get to her, and then all of a sudden crumbled. And that's exactly what we saw today. She was so calm to start. I mean, I'm walking with the card, and she's loose. Like, you can tell she's chatting with her partner Tyler, who's caddies for her every round, and she's just talking shop with him. She'll miss a putt and not really faze her, and she'll be chatting with him, and then all of a sudden, back 9 comes around. She missed a putt on 10, and then she wasn't chatting with anybody, and she wasn't loose. She was tight. Like, the breaths weren't as deep. You could tell that the pressure was getting to her. So I really want to hear a little bit more about what you guys chatted about, and if you feel like she's kind of knocking on the right doors.
Oh my gosh. She's already through it. She's already through the doors. I always say this, but I'm not sitting here calling her a choker. But anytime there's an athlete that gets second a bunch of times, the discourse amongst sports fans is that person is a choker. What a luxury it is to be called that, because you are the one that's eligible for that title, because you put yourself in that position. Holland is elite. And I talked to her for about an hour and a half. There's a new episode of the Flight Diary coming out. I'm announcing it here. It's the first episode of the show in 4 years, and it's coming out. I'm producing it myself. I'm not putting it out on any other platforms. But she told me a lot about what her mindset has turned into over the years. And she told me that she's experimented with different mindsets. She's tried to put herself in like chill, laid back, party Holland mode. She's tried to put herself in like cold-blooded killer Holland mode. And she said currently the best that she's done is when she separates her personality almost into two separate personalities. She has player Holland on one side and coach Holland on the other side. Player Holland, she admits herself, is a diva. Player Holland wants things a certain way. Player Holland wants things silver plattered for her. She wants to know when to show up to practice. She wants to know what tournaments she's playing. She wants to know what tournaments to not play. She wants to know what to eat, blah, blah, blah. She wants a coach. She grew up with very strict coaches in volleyball, and it has lingered with her whole life. You know, when she was younger, she said she hated coaches like that. But then she got older and she realized, oh, I actually kind of like that structure. So Coach Holland is what she pretty much embodies most of the time when she's not practicing or competing. And Coach Holland is supposed to take care of player Holland and silver platter things. So that comes down to keeping her, her trailer clean, keeping a practice schedule, holding player Holland accountable for that, making sure what lifts you're doing, organizing all the things in her life so she can just go to practice and play. And she was saying it's so different than how she grew up because she's so used to having these people telling her where to go, what to do. Like when you're a student athlete, like everything is laid out for you. You have to follow all these rigid guidelines. So she's now doing that for herself, which I have never heard before in the way that she described it. But disc golfers in reality have to do that for themselves. How you get to that mindset is different for everybody. But hearing that from her, it's really fascinating. And she's just so passionate about this game and digging to the bottom of it. And again, she's an engineer. So like that's how she needs to figure it out. But, Ella, Holland, Kristen, Missy, Owen, Evelina, we have so many shooters in this FPO division that are in good form right now. I mean, Evelina, I believe, was in the positive for strokes gained putting. And I think if she would have won, it would have been her first tournament ever winning with positive strokes gained putting. That's scary for the rest of the division too. So a lot of storylines.
Putter was there. And Evelyn is going to lead the driving category again this year. I have no doubts. And I'm with you. If the putter's hot, I mean, it's obvious that she's going to win a lot of tournaments. And what I saw from Evelina this week was really promising because I think when you have the season like you had last year, when you are the first player from Finland to win a world title, you bring that back to your country. You're going on all these news stations, you're interviewing people are recognizing you that don't even play disc golf. They're recognizing you back in Finland. I think you've made it. Right. And it feels like Evelina, she doesn't have the entirety of her career resting on every putt. Because for a couple seasons in a row, I think every fan at home could kind of feel it. Every time she went up to putt, it was just crushing how the nerves were presenting themselves for her. I mean, she was trembling before, as soon as it was her turn to putt, she was trembling. And I would call Evelina a friend, and I was walking with the card for the first two rounds, watching her play. And I just didn't see that same kind of pressure presenting itself for her when she was walking up to her putts. She kind of had a little bit more of a grit in her face when she was like going through her routine, and the extension was there and the deep breaths were there. And I think the pressure did get to her a little bit final day, but I don't chalk that up to the exact same thing that was causing her the yips over the last few seasons. So yeah, Kristen needs to get back over here so we can the FPO can continue to just light up, man. Cause it's fun. And I think the sport has something really special in having our championships be on the same day. You know, I grew up watching a lot of tennis, Brian, and you know, it was always the women played on Saturday for the major, and then the men played on Sunday, which is cool. I think that's great. But what disc golf has with the champions both getting crowned on Sunday and playing at the same venues, I mean, it's sick.
It's really special. And speaking of you know, the other category, the other division.
Should we cruise over? I guess we could talk about FPO forever, but we'll just talk forever. Let's cruise.
We have a long season to talk about both divisions. And Nate, I think we should move on to MPO. And again, congratulations to Ella. What a start to the year. MPO, another phenomenal finish. Ezra Robinson proved to us that he's that dog. He is that boy this season early on. And I'll pass it to you, but I want to say, I talked to Bob Giulio today, and Bob Giulio is the manager of Discraft that's made a lot of the biggest deals in the sport's history happen. I talked to him at the World Championships in Vermont when Isaac won. And he was talking about those boys back then. I talked to him at GMC last year. He's talking to me about Ezra already. And I asked him back then, why Ezra? Why not Isaac? He was looking specifically at Ezra, and he said he's got that chip on his shoulder. He has some great upside, and Bob said that he has that edge to him. He's got the tattoo, he's got the earring, he's got that like marketable athlete that apparently matches the brand well, but they had been watching him develop as a player for years. And this year, what a time to sign Ezra Robinson. You followed him pretty much the whole weekend. What did you see?
I mean, I've been watching Ezra play for a really long time, and I think I first played with him when he was 17 at Ledgestone, and you can just tell right away when someone's been playing since they were a little kid, because for me, he's perfected the backhand drive in his own way, but the way that Ezra is able to get the disc back online with subtle adjustments in the wrist angle is almost unmatched. There's a few other people that do it. You know, Paul messes around with it a little bit, but Macbeth is a little bit more obvious in his like upper body tilt, like where his disc is going. But Ezra, it's legitimately like, he's got the disc in the power pocket, and then, last second, let me just put this Undertaker on the perfect little line, late flipping 380 under the branch. Like, he's in total control, and he's another player who we've been saying for years that we think that you need both spins to make it happen.
Yeah.
But there continues to be these shredders that don't throw forehands, that just don't do it. I mean, he threw a couple this week total when he was forced to, but the fact that he is going to dominate a Disc Golf Pro Tour in 2025, won by 6 strokes, I think he threw maybe 4 forehands total. I mean, do you really need both spins if you can control it to with that precision, Brian?
Here's the thing. He threw a forehand on 14.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful forehand that a lot of players would die to have. And
yeah, that flex. I think his bro talked him into it as well, because Isaac had already finished, and he showed up. He put the caddy bib on, and I saw him kind of ask Ezra if he wanted him to take the bag. Ezra kept the bag on, which I liked, actually. I think that you just don't want to mess with the flow. But on that shot on 14, I'm pretty sure Isaac was like giving him the line right there and kind of talked him into it. But you're right, Brian. I mean, it was a sweet shot. So he's got it in the bag, but he just must feel so much more comfortable shaping the backhand.
It's a bold caddy move to go to a person like Ezra and tell him to throw the forehand. I feel like most people who would caddy for him would never in a million years say, "Hey, bud, you're going to throw a forehand on this shot." They just wouldn't know his game well enough. And it's a special moment, special thing to play with your brother as much. I have experience playing with my brother. It's a really special bond to see someone throw over and over again and know their equipment so well and know the way they think. It's awesome. I could see the emotion in both of them when either of them wins a tournament. It means a lot to them.
For me, my favorite thing about Ezra is the putt. I think the great players of the sport have kind of found their own identity on the putting green. And that's what I see from both the Robinson brothers. I mean, Isaac has literally the freest wrist that we've ever seen, finishing way open off to the right. But Ezra is more like flat with his palm when he finishes. He's just like throwing it, and his line when he finds it, he's not like arcing putts into the pin, he's not like Macbeth style with like perfect pace. Ezra's just burying putts. They're flat and they're just penetrating, and it's got its own spin to it, and then he can take that putt that he uses for C1, and honestly, dude, it backs out to like 150, 180.
Yeah.
We were watching him throw the putts in from 180 during the Pro Tour Championship last year. It wasn't gross. It wasn't a toss. He's like putting it in the same manner that he putts from C1. And we were commentating on some of the New Zealand golf. I asked the people in the comments to give it a name, what he does, that little like spin throw thing. Mm-hmm. So we're calling it the Robin spin. It's Robin spin, baby. And it's going to win him some tournaments. And I know he's not going to like this, but I don't see Isaac beating Ezra too many times this season.
Ooh, hot take number one.
I don't see Big Bro beating Ezra too many times. Now, it's going to happen. Isaac, obviously, 2-time world champ, dominated Champions Cup. He's a three-time major winner. He knows how to get it done, and he's been able to tap into something special. But I feel like Ezra's the better player, and I know that it's kind of easy to run on that because he just won by 6. But I see Ezra having a much better record this season.
Oh, I can't wait for this to play out. This is the first Perks pick of the year. I didn't think we were doing Perks picks already, but I'm going to straight up disagree with you. I think it's going to be a wonderfully even match between the two of them. And again, Ezra had a bunch to prove leading up to this season.
Is it going to be like AB where he gets the monkey off the back and then just it's wide open? Is he going to rattle off some more?
Here's the problem. MPO is not wide open. Look down the leaderboard. Contender, all the way past the cash line. Mm-hmm. Like, we have winners all the way down past the cash line. So would I love to see it? Yes, absolutely. But don't discount the world champ. I cannot do that, and I will not do that. I was going to finish my thought. So not only did he throw that rocket on 9, which is now burned into my memory. I don't know why that shot was so unique, but he also, second shot on 16 final round, he's pushed a little bit deep in the fairway. He has to play to the inside or the outside of the gap. And he throws, I believe it's a Luna that he's throwing now on this pretty steep hyzer, pushes it left, turns it all the way back over, and somehow gets it to land flat to 20 feet. It was such a technical shot, and it was an Isaac line. That's the kind of stuff that Isaac does that not many other people have to do. It's like the righty's version of a it's like his lefty backhand. You know, it's just a crazy technical turnover line, and now he's doing everything. The slowed down shots were the ones that I felt like were shaky, but he was great with the distance driver. He's building an overall game, and I think at this level to win, you're just going to have to do that. You're going to have the Robin spin, which I'm going to start calling walking the plank, because we have to make it pirate themed at this point.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
The Peach Pirate, baby. That was so fun interviewing him. Oh man, interviewing the players. I mean, when there's tears on the green of 18, when someone's having the best moment of their life, it's so cool to be a part of that and interview them and to shout out the Peach Pirate like that on the PA. That was fun. But on that note, on your Luna note, Brian, I think that Ezra moving to Discraft is a huge improvement overall. I think his lineup just got significantly better, and he's going to have an incredible access to old discs from all the friends that he has that's on Team Discraft. But I feel like right away he's taken a hit in like the flippy putter and the flippy mid category, because he had discs, I think PA1 and M4, that were just beat to perfection that he had for several years. So to see him already figuring out how to shape a Luna like you were saying on the 16th is huge.
He's still in between. He actually was telling me that the putter category is what he's still working on. He actually wants to try the banger, a man after my own heart. Michael Johansson's somewhere smiling, thinking about that. So I think he's going to try to get a hold of some base plastic bangers and beat him in. And I would love that resurgence. But let's go down the list. I mean, we're going to talk about Ezra a lot this year. I agree. I think this was a huge signing for Discraft. It was a smart signing as well. The upside is crazy. They signed a player with a chip on his shoulder that lived in his brother's shadow for a little bit, and now he gets to shine. This was like out the gate, looked phenomenal. Go down the leaderboard. We had a Paul Rickey lead card. Anthony Barella was in the lead going into the final day to defend. Talk about that lead card experience, just total following along.
Yeah, again, I think that what Disc Golf has in our icons is just incredible. I think I'll relate it back to tennis again. It kind of reminds me of, the big three. It's like Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer. And I don't know who Djokovic is for disc, but I feel like Ricky and Paul are like Rafa and Roger. And for them, I mean, when I started watching disc golf, 2014, the first tournament I watched was Paul and Rick World Championships, Portland. Blue Lake playoff. I'm shouting at the TV, and I signed up for the PDGA that day, Brian. My dad and I are watching in Texas, and I signed up for the PDGA that day, watching them play, and for it to be over a decade later, and these guys are still not only just here, but playing like at the highest level. I think it's incredible. And when Anthony, so I interviewed Barella day 2 after his round. He went 11 down, then 9 down. So he's got the lead by 3. And I asked him what he thought about Paul and Rick being on the lead card with him. And the dude just lit up. He was like, really? They're Paul and Rick? Are you serious? Like, he was just like, no way. And he's like, well, I mean, they're my heroes. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to try and lock it in. And I asked him if there was anything that they could do to put pressure on. And AB kind of chuckled, and he's like, I don't think it's really in their hands. It's up to me. He feels comfortable. He said he felt comfortable out on the course, and it really was his to lose. And it wasn't until obviously hole 4, he changed his game plan on the fourth, Brian. Hardest
he
hole
didn't go over the top.
Didn't go over the top. Why not? I wonder if he was overthinking that a little, or just
there was a wind coming that was gonna. If he hit the wrong angle, it was a head cross to the left off the tee. You try to go over the top and you catch the wrong angle, pop the nose up a little bit too much. That thing is gone. So
like
I understand why he. No, other way.
Left.
Like he's getting sent way left, and it's not going to be pretty. And there's not even a chance to birdie. And bogey even becomes tough because then you're having to go up that left side up the hill by the FPO basket. Mm-hmm. That's why I think he did it. But you're asking, did he overthink the situation? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that makes sense with the wind. Yeah. It makes sense with the wind. So he goes low, gets a little tree kick into, a pretty weird spot. But his second shot, it wasn't that bad, but gets the nastiest tree kick, instantly OB. Then he's forced into a really awkward shot to try and get up and down, and it rolls out of bounds again. Up onto the hill, was like up into the sawgrass, and I think that for me, that was the only thing that was going to get AB, questioning himself, was if the course kind of bit him early, or if he, made a mistake, if he 3-putt the first or something weird like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't his day, man. The course was mean. It showed its teeth, and
hole 7, he was already demoralized. He threw a shot on 7. It was beautiful. It was a little bit shallow. You want to play high left on hole 7, just in case you get a roll.
Oh yeah, the triple roll, skip and roll.
Yeah, he walks back, and I'm standing right next to him on the tee, and he just goes, "Looks like it's rollaway day today, huh?" And he already sounded a little bit defeated, but that's the kind of stuff, it's micro mistakes where the shot looks good, but you're like, okay, I probably should have played it tiny bit higher on the left. And then there you go. You lose the coin toss and you're down the hill and you par again and you lose a stroke. It was a wild day out there, but the course sets up for some fantastic competition. And I firmly went into the final day thinking that Paul was going to give us the show, and he still kind of did. He snuck up to us on 17, and he's like, I might sneak out a little podium finish. And he did. I thought he was completely out of it. If Paul's going to come out swinging this year and throwing with the speed that I'm witnessing, I'm excited. He's throwing much quicker than he did last year. His timing looks already better. He said he threw a tech disc at the Expo up in New England, and he was hitting like 69, and he was pissed. And AB was hitting like 82, 81, 82, and I don't know. That might be the kick in the butt that he needed to realize, like, okay, it's time to start figuring out the timing, making some tiny adjustments. I would love to see a Paul win in 2025. I know it's not a spicy take whatsoever. I think the whole disc golf community's feeling it, but I definitely feel that. What a special opening weekend. I guess the other thing I wanted to ask you, kind of as we wrap things up, look down the leaderboard a little bit. Mm-hmm. What other players are you wanting to see? First one I want to ask you about, Gannon Buhr, 12th place. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are going to be asking what happened. And for me, I don't even have to really ask that. I think that you said it in it's micro mistakes. I mean, this course is really specific, and you miss the landing zone, you get in a bad spot, you get greedy, all of a sudden you're taking a big number. Gannon, I think he also tripled the same exact hole that AB tripled in that final round, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and he shoot? He shot a 2 down day one with a bunch of weird bogeys and a couple C1 misses, and then 6 down day 2, which is a respectable number, and then found major trouble on the final day. So I think 12th place is really nothing to worry about. Yep. I think in his mind, he's going to be sweating quite a bit, because we talked to him during the press conference, and one of his goals for the season was top 10 at every event, and he kind of said it in a manner like, yeah, I think, it should be doable. I only missed it one time last season. Mm-hmm. He missed it at one event. And so for him, I think it's a big deal. It might be for a few fans out there, but he's still the number one player in the world. I think even with Ezra's dominant performance and, the field that we have, I think that, if you're putting your money on any player, I think you should still put it on Gannon Buhr.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried, Brian.
Let's go back to 2023. This is what I always refer back to when this might have been a little bit of a transitional question asking about his 12th place finish. In 2023, 30th place at Vegas, wins the Memorial. 24th place at Waco, wins Open at Austin. 19th place at Innova Texas State Championship. 3rd place at Music City Open, wins out there at Blue Ridge. Let's see, what else we got? 50th place at the Dynamic Disc Open, 1st place at Pickard, 10th place at the Preserve, 1st place in KC Wide Open. 24th place at Ledgestone, 1st place at Idlewild. He gets fired up, and that doesn't just go away in 2 years. Like, that's still there in his psyche as an athlete. And I think he's going to defrost. The other thing is he was in the Midwest a lot of the time. He went and did some other things elsewhere, but he didn't go to New Zealand. He wasn't living in Scottsdale playing every day. Mm-hmm. Some players hang the bag up for a little bit and take some time off and then use this first event to defrost. And I'm really excited to see what he's capable of as well. And, man, Simon's looking fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing how Eagle does the rest of the season. Man, this division, I think, is going to really blow us away. And with all the big tournaments we have in Europe right now and all the players, because of Worlds going over there, it's going to be a really exciting year on the Disc Golf Pro
Who'd you
Tour.
see top 10 that you liked? I saw Austin Turner popped up in their top 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, Austin is fantastic, and I was going to talk about him at some point, but he shifted his focus a little bit from just being a pro player to being a content creator. And he's working a lot with Another Round out there in North Carolina. He goes out and he tries to run aces, and he probably gets so many quality reps in and is fully putting himself into that execution mindset of just get up there, put the disc in the basket. That's really good practice. That's how Simon Lizotte grew up. Mm-hmm. He grew up just trying to hit aces as a little kid. And look where he is now. So, I don't know. I think Austin Turner could blow us away. I've said for a while that he has the archetype of what a lefty needs to look like to win on the tour. And he looked confident. I watched him bang a fantastic putt from like 40, 50 feet on hole 16. I'm really impressed by him. In the FPO division, I think we both agree that Eliezer Midling, top 10 finish for her, was very impressive. I think some people were questioning whether she was going to get it together last year. Again, she's not even 20 yet. She's not even close to 20. And her throw has cleaned up. If you go back and watch her play, she used to come back and like twist the disc very vertical as she went back to throw. Oh, yeah. And it limits you from shaping the disc, and it's not as clean of a release as if it was a little bit less harsh of an angle you bring it back on. So I watched her this week, and that has cleaned up, whether it's subconscious or just the body wanted to move in a more efficient way and just naturally got there.
That's intentional for sure. I think that's an intentional adjustment. And you know who she's got on the bag, Brian, and this is swinging back to MPO, and I want to talk about just 3 players real quick. She's got Luke Taylor on the bag, and he's a guy that I'm really big on this season. For sure, passes the eye test for me. Blew us away at the World Championships, was out driving every single person in the division, but more so it's the attitude. Another kid, 18 years old, who's talking like a 30-year-old, like just stands up straight, broad shoulders, looks you in the eye, so respectful, so humble, but also so confident, just has it all. And he's a guy that I keep hearing other people bring his name up. Like, I keep hearing fans and, you know, disc golf network employees like, oh, wow, you see Luke Taylor? Like, he's a real deal, right? And it's just, I feel like he's the type of pedigree who's just inevitable that he's going to have some success out here because of his mindset, because of his work ethic.
I'm already so optimistic for the season. Nate, thank you so much for joining me today. Pilot is complete. Thank you all so much for listening. Again, if you have ideas for segments on the show, if you want to partner with the podcast, this is only the beginning. We're going to be growing this show, growing the community around this show all season long and into the off season. Nate, any final words for the fans?
Yeah, definitely. If you guys want, you know, any specific content, just hit us up, just send us a message. I think Instagram is a good way to reach out to both of us. I'm Perks of Disc Golf on Instagram. Or are you Bearheart? What are you on Instagram?
I cannot get that name. I've tried to get it, and they are not giving it to me. It's Brian_Earhart on Instagram. You can follow me there. Send us a message if you have any questions or any takes that you want us to bring up during the next week's show. We will see you next time, folks. Thanks for joining.